Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about Big Pharma versus alternative medicine. I've been doing a few videos on RFK, and we know that RFK tends to dabble in the more alternative medicine, the stuff that a lot of mainstream medical practitioners would consider kind of wacky or fringe types of treatments and things like that. But I recently have been, I've kind of been looking into this. There's this, I don't want to name him, but he is a YouTube, I think he's like a nutritionist or a naturopath or something. And he's all about high dose thiamine therapy. And he's like really all about it. He seems to believe that it can help a wide variety of conditions, including these like chronic inflammatory issues that people have. And I've been interested in trying the therapy. I don't think I'm going to react well to it given that my stomach doesn't tolerate much. But I've watched a few of his videos, and I recently saw one where he interviews another doctor that is well versed in chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is what I believe I may be dealing with. And, they both are very knowledgeable, but there are some things that, that are a bit questionable. And this is kind of what I want to talk about. I go through his videos to see this particular video is like a year old. So I started looking at some of his more recent videos, and there was something that he posted about vaccines, about, RFK, and just, he's not even from the United States, I don't think, but for whatever reason, he seemed, pretty thrilled that RFK is now in charge. And it really, it rubbed me the wrong way. It was a very short video. It was definitely like a propaganda type video. Definitely something that he was catering to his crowd, because there were, so many comments underneath that were just anti-vax or vaccine skeptic, just all kinds of stuff like that. And to me, it was a very edited video, because again, it was like, I think it was like 5 or 7 minutes, definitely just a propaganda type video. And he even said, he's like, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. It's like, but clearly you are, if you're railing against, he kind of left it sort of ambiguous, but if you're excited about RFK, being our director of Health and Human Services, then, I can basically guess your position on vaccines. But the way that the video was edited, it was made to because it was parts of the hearing for RFK's nomination, but it was just like these bits and pieces of, politicians that were sort of railing against RFK and sort of making those politicians look very sinister and very angry, and not, adding in any of the parts where RFK is being grilled over the fact that he receives money from suing vaccine companies. There was a whole part in the hearings, because I watched lots of, all the different pieces of the hearing. There was a huge part that addressed the fact that RFK has made money off of helping other people sue vaccine manufacturers. So right away, and this guy, he's like a young guy. He's, he promotes this high dose thiamine therapy. And obviously I was like, there's no miracle cure for what I have, but I wouldn't be opposed to trying it. And he also has his own supplement company, that makes this high dose thiamine. And that video alone, just that one video, because his other videos I had not really seen, promote too much propaganda, but it seems like he is starting to push for that. And I really was disappointed, because that to me is a telltale sign of a grifter, one of these, quacks, somebody that is just trying to make money. And So, it really, I was like, this high, I mean, I had my doubts about the high dose thiamine therapy, but now seeing that, I was like, oh, this is just another grift. This is just another way for this guy to make money, off of people's desperation and, and enrich himself, which is exactly what they're accusing Big Pharma of doing. He was accusing these politicians in that video of having the biggest donations from pharmaceutical companies. Well, RFK makes money off of, suing vaccine manufacturers. What's your point? They're both making money. So, so I kind of want to give you guys a PSA or some kind of a warning, because I'm somebody that has spent tens of thousands of dollars on alternative medicine, if you can call it that. I have tried every supplement. I have tried every alternative therapies that cost close to $20,000. I mean, I've done it all, and you guys are going to see there have been videos posting on my channel of all of these alternative therapies that I've tried, and whether they have helped me or not. I mean, I'm still sick, so obviously, you have your answer right there. But I do think that these alternative medicine influencers or doctors, some of them are doctors, a lot of them are chiropractors. This guy, I think, is just a nutritionist. He's really, he has no expertise to really be promoting whatever he's promoting. But you have to address both sides of the argument, in my opinion, in order to be, in order for me to trust you. If he would have said, look, a lot of these politicians are getting money from pharmaceutical companies, but RFK is also profiting off of suing vaccine manufacturers, I think I would have been more likely to trust him. But it was a heavily edited video. It was very shortened, and he definitely was just pushing propaganda. And I made sure to leave a comment pointing that out. I mean, I don't know if anybody's going to see my comment or if it's going to be removed from his channel, more than likely. But, I really think that people should be aware, especially if you are outside of the United States, which from my understanding he is. He's a British dude, I think. So if a lot of people from other countries are looking at this video and hadn't seen the entire hearing for RFK, they're not going to know that he was grilled regarding the fact that he makes money from suing vaccine manufacturers, which is a huge piece of the puzzle. You cannot accuse some politicians for making money off of Big Pharma and then just completely leave that out, because RFK is technically making money off of suing Big Pharma. So it's just, they're all making money. It just blows my mind that people can be so blatantly manipulative because they have an audience that's going to believe whatever they say. So you need to hold both sides accountable. I'm not going to say that he should ignore the fact that these politicians are receiving money from pharmaceutical companies, but you've got to hold both sides accountable. So as I mentioned before, most of these alternative medicine, doctors, chiropractors, nutritionists, naturopaths, whatever they are, they're always selling something. So as I mentioned at the top of this video, he did a 3-hour interview with another doctor, and this other guy is an actual doctor, but he's like an integrative medicine doctor, and he talks about chronic inflammatory response syndrome and mold toxicity. And I'm watching it because it was very interesting, and it does seem to explain a lot of my symptoms and why I've had a hard time recovering. But at the end, once you start getting towards the end, it was like a 3-hour long video. So obviously a lot of people are not going to get to the end of this thing. Once he gets to the end, then you see that this doctor, this integrative doctor, is selling a course. He's selling a course of just like a webinar on his treatment protocol. It's not even the treatment protocol. It's just a webinar for I think he's selling it for $300 to $400 just for you to watch it and I guess learn. It doesn't include supplements or anything. It's just for you to know, I guess, what's going on in your body. And so once I get to that point and I see these people are just selling something, these people are just selling, the guy, this other guy has a supplement, a supplement company. So they're selling something, and these people are always selling something. They're always selling something. So you have to understand that the very thing that they're accusing Big Pharma of, which is profiting off of people being sick, they're doing the exact same thing, right? What a lot of people don't understand about this whole anti-vaccine movement is that, not just anti-vaccine, but like anti-allopathic medicine, just anti-mainstream, doctors, is that they want those people, the people that are going to doctors, they want that clientele, right? If you're not going to a regular doctor, you're going to go to a naturopath, a chiro, and you're going to buy their supplements instead of buying the drugs, right? They just want the clientele. And I really think that that's something that a lot of people really need to understand, is that yes, it's not Big Pharma, but it's big naturopath or big, supplement company. It's you're just they just want they want your money to go to them, not to pharmaceutical companies. So they always have some kind of a grift or something that they're selling. Whether it works or not, sometimes these things do work. I have supplements. I have one supplement right now that, cost me $100, but it's helping me. It's not gonna cure my illness, but it's helping with some of my symptoms. So I can't say that these natural things don't work, but I also can't say that drugs don't work either. Because I've, had some pharmaceutical stuff, very expensive pharmaceuticals that have also helped. So, you kind of just have to pick your poison, I guess. The other thing that I have noticed, particularly when it comes to the whole anti-vax situation, is that these people will rail against vaccines, or they will, come out with this propaganda, this anti-vax propaganda, and they'll say, oh, I'm not anti-vax, but they will promote this anti-vax stuff and never offer an alternative. So what is your alternative? If if people shouldn't vaccinate, what is your alternative to this? Essential oils? Like, this is what I'm not understanding, right? I did make a video on the measles outbreak, and that RFK was, promoting vitamin A and, antibiotics, which do not work against measles. But vaccines as a whole, what are you going to replace them with? Because if people stop vaccinating, then they're going to get sick, as we are now seeing with this measles outbreak. What is the alternative? And that's what they never offer. They just rail against people and demonize certain politicians for getting donations from pharmaceutical companies, but they never offer an alternative. There have been numerous studies already, for studying the connection between vaccines and autism, and there hasn't been anything really conclusive, right? There is no concrete evidence that vaccines cause autism. So what, should we just keep doing study after study after study until it validates what these people believe? And again, what is the alternative? Right? Are we going to change the formulation of the vaccines, or we're just going to do away with vaccines altogether? You have to understand that it's so vague. A lot of these naturopaths are just so vague when it comes to a solution. And, often the solution is going to be whatever they're selling, right? Or they have no good alternative. And that's something that I have noticed time and time again with these people, is that they just never really give you like, here, instead of this, do this, right? And an essential oil is nothing compared to a vaccine. You're going to have to give me something that is, just as reliable as a vaccine, right? You can't just throw it out there and say, oh, vaccines are no good, and just tell people to, just deal with it, I guess. I would also be aware of miracle cures that are one size fits all. And that was my biggest the biggest red flag when I started watching this guy, because of he is just all about high dose thiamine therapy. That is like basically most of his channel is just promoting this high dose thiamine therapy. And he's done interviews with people that have tried it. Again, I don't know how legit these interviews are. They do seem like real people, but again, take everything with a grain of salt. But this high dose thiamine therapy seems to have brought some people back to life. I mean, people that were bedridden or people that could barely eat anything or that were having histamine issues. And just doing this high dose thiamine therapy has just been a game changer and saved people's lives. And it's like, I never heard of this before I found this guy's channel. But again, what could it hurt, right? So, I'm always very wary of somebody that is selling a single thing as a solution to a wide variety of problems. So, always question, always take it with a grain of salt. And again, he did make his own, thiamine supplement as well as other supplements, because he says he has a supplement company. So you kind of have to think of it in terms of profit. He's going to promote this high dose thiamine therapy because he's selling a special type of thiamine that he believes is the best thiamine for this type of therapy. So, connect the dots, I guess. So take everything with a grain of salt, always ask questions. A lot of these guys also promote some very fringy kind of ideas. And again, I'm not against it. I have done the fringe stuff. I have done the foot baths. I have done acupuncture. I have done all those things. Sometimes they help, sometimes they don't. But there's always these fringy ideas. For example, EMF sensitivity, which is like being sensitive to Wi-Fi. The one dude that he was interviewing, the doctor he was interviewing on his channel was somebody that was like, his thing was just mold exposure. So he promotes this thing called extreme mold exposure, where you just move into the wilderness and, not live in a building to see, if you feel better, which again, it seems kind of counterproductive because I think mold and spores exist everywhere. I don't think you can really get away from it 100%. So you kind of have to ask yourself, are these things realistic? Are these things that I can do, or that are just in the realm of reality? My point of view is, if it's not harmful, go for it. For example, I could buy an EMF, you could get an EMF canopy to put over your bed. So at least while you sleep at night, you block all the EMF instead of having to turn off your entire Wi-Fi. You can just block it out. I wouldn't be against trying that and seeing if it helps, at least if it helps with like sleep or whatever. I'm not against it. But you have to, use your own judgment, and, because we're all different. Some of us are very severe. Some of us are not as bad as others. So you have to ask yourself, what can my body tolerate? And what am I willing to do? How much money am I willing to spend? I know people that have spent, probably even more than I have on trying all of these, fringe therapies. And there's people that just don't. They're not even willing to do things that are covered by insurance, like using, oxygen or something. So you've got to use your own judgment, and also just be very careful with your body, because one wrong move and it can send you into a flare. I know I can go into flares for months, and it's not worth it. And always remember that these influencers prey on desperation. They prey on your desperation because obviously a lot of us have been to many allopathic traditional doctors and we have not gotten help. And so they know that there are people out there that are very, very sick, that have not found any solution, and they're here to offer you the cure. And the worst part is that when their therapies don't help, it is still your fault. Right? Traditional doctors have the, it's all in your head excuse, but these alternative doctors have the, you didn't follow directions, you didn't do it exactly the way I told you to, you didn't try hard enough. They will always default to something when it doesn't work, because it's never their fault. It's never, the fact that it's, that some of these treatments are BS. It's always on the patient. So I don't really see a massive difference between Big Pharma and big supplement or big alternative. They follow a very, very similar script. And I want everybody that is chronically ill out there to know that. And when I saw this video, this anti-vax video, it was heavily edited. It was just 100% propaganda. And I want to point that out, because a lot of us are desperate and we want to believe what these people are selling. We want to believe that it's going to work for us, but you really have to read between the lines and use your own judgment, because your health is on the line here. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this. Let me know if there's any other kind of video that you would like me to make. I'm trying to stay on top of the whole RFK situation, because that is something that is going to directly impact those of us. I believe Dr. Oz is also going through his nomination process this week. So I'll try to do a video on that as well, because that's also going to impact those of us that are on Medicare and Medicaid here in the United States. So please stay tuned for that. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.